SEC Media Days next week, we'll be broadcasting from there. And I told you last week it would be Joe Milton, Jacob Warren, and Omari Thomas. So here's what I was told. It had to be Joe Milton, because if you don't take Joe Milton, and it's not unusual not to take a quarterback, even a senior, if he's a first-year starter. So you easily could have taken, I don't know, a Cooper Mays, a Jacob Warren, and Omari Thomas. But it would have been a huge red flag not to take Joe Milton. Naturally, the media would have been like, well, there's Joe Milton. I mean, how could he not be there? This is a big deal. I mean, you would bring him if he was definitely the quarterback. Some people would go in that direction. So they didn't want to raise red flags, so they wanted to bring Joe Milton. Jacob Warren, who is on the Ball Report, brought to you by Bassey Lawn and Garden, was just more than a natural fit. He is not only one of the best speakers at Tennessee, he's one of the best speakers I've ever covered. He's also one of the best speakers in the history of Tennessee football. He's comfortable behind a microphone. He's not going to say anything stupid, but he is going to give people something to write about. Phenomenal pick. Omari Thomas, you had to have a defensive guy. You had to have a defensive guy, or you're basically saying to the SEC media, this is still an offensive team. It's not a defensive team. So I certainly got the pick of Omari Thomas. If it was up to me, I wouldn't have played politics. I would have gone based off what you deserve with a little bit of newsiness. So I would have gone Joe Milton, Jacob Warren. Joe Milton, because he's the quarterback, Jacob Warren, and Cooper Mays. Not because the latter two work with us. I just think they're the best representatives and have played the longest and been through the tough times. I would have taken those two guys, and it would have been all three offense. People would have said, oh, Tennessee's still going to be a defensive team. I wouldn't care. But I would take Joe Milton because I think it would help the pub of the program, even if I had doubts about him, which I don't think the Tennessee coaches do. But even if I had doubts about him, I would take Joe Milton because he's going to be the face of the program, Caleb. And I think it is a good sign, though. Not all of this is orchestrated, that he's worked hard. Let's face it. If he showed up at the facility at 11 o'clock a.m. and left at 3 p.m. and didn't put in the work, they wouldn't be taking him. So that I think it's a good sign. It's not a definitive sign, but a good sign, Caleb.
Yeah, and also let's chicken or the egg this real quick. I think that for anybody that accuses us of saying Cooper Mays should have gone because he works with us, you picked Jacob Warren and Cooper Mays because you think they're the best representatives for Tennessee. So yeah. It's part of the reason you think they should go is why you picked them to be on the show or to be part of affiliated with the show. So because of what you believe about them. So that part came first. So yeah,
thank you for saying that actually, because I thought that was a couple of pretty good calls by Dave, but I didn't want to say that myself.
Yeah. So the thing that sticks out to me, there are a couple of things that stick out to me. I understand you're right. The Joe Milton and the defensive guy, you got to have your quarterback and the defensive guy if you're politicking. And then Jacob Warren and Cooper Mays, I think the tiebreaker was this is Jacob Warren's last year of eligibility, and technically Cooper Mays has another year of eligibility. I'll tell you what kind of threw me off, though, Dave, and I don't know if you have any inside reporting on this. Picking Omari Thomas over Jalen McCullough stood out to me because Omari Thomas also has another year of eligibility, and Jalen McCullough is in his final year, and he's started every year since 2019. Now, again, sometimes guys can just be really good, quiet players who aren't natural leaders in front of the camera. So maybe that's why. I mean, maybe it's because of the indictment that we're talking about. I don't know. What do you think?
Both.
You think it's both?
Yeah. I don't think you take a guy with even if you believe he's 100% innocent with an assault issue hanging over his head. I don't think you take Jalen McCullough. I don't think it's even a question that you would take him. No. I would not take him. I would take a defensive player if my hand were forced. I guess Omari would be the guy. I don't think Omari is going to be very comfortable. I mean, we're talking about 500 media members. The other thing you have to remember with Joe Milton is, he had the I don't lose in Florida line that was at the Peyton Manning camp not long ago. So it's funny that your most high-profile guy and your quarterback, who's typically the leader, is by far the most likely of these three to say something, because Joe has some brashness. You haven't seen Joe a lot in front of the media, but Joe has some brashness from what I'm told. He is the most likely of the three. And when I looked at the list yesterday, one of the more likely of all of the SEC invitees to say something a little bit brash, whether he slips up and says it, I don't lose in Florida like he did at the Peyton Manning camp, or whether that's just who he is. And that's fine. Some people are like that. And if they back it up, got no problem with it. But you open yourself up by not taking the three most deserving. You open yourself up by taking Joe Milton to him saying something that you really don't want said. He's not going to come out and say, we're going to go undefeated this season and we're the Vols and here we go. He's not going to say anything crazy like that. But could he say something that gets traction, Caleb? I think he could. I wouldn't be stunned to see that whatsoever.
Oh, yeah, I think so too. And I mean, the funny thing is I kind of laugh about that because I'm trying to remember the year, and I believe, you know what? It was 2012. Tyler Bray went to SEC Media Days with Derek Dooley, and Tyler Bray got up on the podium and guaranteed that Tennessee's going to win the SEC title this year, even though they were 5-7 the year before. And spoiler alert, they went 5-7 the next year. Derek Dooley got fired. But, yeah, the question is, do you really? I thought about this. You know, it's funny. We talk about the brashness of Joe Milton, and then kind of the level-headed leadership vocalness of Jacob Warden. Wouldn't you rather kind of the roles be a little bit reversed? Wouldn't you rather your quarterback kind of be the level-headed kind of leader, and maybe your tight end or defensive lineman be the brash guy that does all the talking when they go?
Oh, yeah. I've always believed that pitchers and quarterbacks should be level-headed and not get up or not get down. And that's why I thought Hendon Hooker was so cool last year. He did have the one incident. It was later in the year. Who was getting chippy with him? And he got chippy on the goal line back. I'm okay.
Florida, wasn't it? Early in the year, wasn't it Florida?
Man, I thought there was an incident later in the game too, where somebody caught him on a camera. And I'm okay with that. With occasionally, if somebody gets in your face, be it Florida or whoever, you just don't want your guy being brash and talking stuff and throwing beer bottles at jet skis and all this. I know I'm combining two stories, but with Tyler Bray, I mean, you don't want all that stuff, Caleb.
Right. And Joe Milton hasn't done any of that, to be fair, but
he hasn't. He's good. It's not going to go in that direction. Hit the subscribe button. Be sure and like if you haven't to this point.